Richmond, Virginia, the story starts. 1848, on the Ides of March. Jackson Merriweather, born into the tether, to work the land and never live to see a dime.
In the early 1960s, Bob Dylan always ended his albums with goodbyes. Slower, more somber songs that often put poignant ends to otherwise sensational albums of folk, love, and rock and roll. In 1965, Dylan's new album, Bringing It All Back Home, started roaring through American car radios. It's Goodbye, a song called It's All Over Now, Baby Blue, lived up to the legacy of the previous capstone endings. The song itself was conceived primarily while listening to Gene Vincent's song Baby Blue, and it included lyrics from popular poet Arthur Rimbaud. The song itself was a strange mix of modern music trends and a few artistic key changes, and it would go on to influence many others. Over its history, since that spring of 1965, the song was covered at least 7 other times by various artists. And one of those others was a writer who was just hitting her stride. There is something idyllic about American letters, something different. During the early 1920s and 30s, America had undergone the First World War, the Great Depression, and was just about to enter World War II. And the sheer weight of that history sagged down the creative conscience of the country. Out of this turmoil arose 2 prominent themes, both of which you are probably already familiar with. Whether it's the Jodes' long and perilous travel from Oklahoma to California, the Bundren family's pilgrimage to deliver their dead matriarch to a pointless grave, or the months that Colonel Augustus McCrae and Woodrow Call take as they almost die on their forced march across Dead Men's Walk, American literature has been about travel. And what an American idea that is. It is so rooted in American history that the frontier itself has been given not a name, but a direction: the West. In America, simply the idea that when things go wrong, when the drought comes, when old age itches us into the final actions of our lives, when fruitless toil becomes a weight we can no longer bear, Americans go west. With this seamless pull of action that we find in American storytelling, comes a kind of divisive duty as well. The children become lenses of the consequences of American nomadicism. The women become icons of an interior home, pillars of stability in a land that never ceases to change. And the men, well, the men drive the wagons. For west is where we all plan to go someday. It is where you go when the land gives out and the old field pines encroach. It is where you go when you get the letter saying, "Flee, all is discovered." It is where you go when you look down at the blade in your hand and the blood on it. It is where you go when you are told that you are a bubble on the tide of empire. It is where you go when you hear that there's gold in them thar hills. It's where you go to grow up with the country. It is where you go to spend your old age. Or it is just where you go. Once you realize this, you see just how prevalent it is in American fiction. This underlying theme is what makes Flannery O'Connor's "The Only Soul You Save May Be Your Own" so poignant. It's why McCarthy's Soot Tree lives on a riverboat, a thing always pulled to new places. It's why the men in Dutch's Gang in Red Dead Redemption repair the wheel of their wagon one last time before finally descending from the mountains towards Valentine. You notice that Arthur Morgan, after being unwittingly pulled into helping a women's suffrage movement, is quickly given reins to hold and told to drive them through the hateful crowds. West. We go west. And with that, we come to the second theme I want to talk about. But first, I have a quick question. Have you ever played Oregon Trail? Millions of kids throughout the 90s and 2000s were enthralled by the textual adventure through America's heartland. You would eagerly begin your family of 5's adventure in aptly named Independence, Missouri, where you would buy your wagon trains, stock up on ammunition and supplies, load your wagon with as much salted bacon as possible, and head out into the one cardinal direction that mattered, toward a better life. Until you meet a river. Do you ford it? Do you caulk up your wagons and attempt to float across? Or do you pay for a ferry, using up supplies as you wait? Well, you, the head of your family and the driver of the ox carts, see that the weather is fair, the river is moderately shallow for this time of year, and you can even afford to lose some supplies. So you make the decision to ford the river. Uh-oh. Dysentery was maybe not something you expected. The urge, the necessity to travel to a better place, to conquer a promised land, has its origins in the ideologies of American Puritanism. Just like their travel across the Atlantic, the Pilgrims simply internalized that urge, and they saw themselves as echoes of the Israelites in their hard-won and divinely ordained exodus from Egypt. But they were soon to find out that though the waves of the Red Sea parted for Moses, the torrential rapids of the Mississippi, of the Rio Grande, of the Columbia did not. And this is where we find a second, ironic aspect to American Gothicism. The ceaseless rivers eat travelers alive. As the prospective ranchers make their way out of the titular town of Lonesome Dove, Texas, they barely make it 100 miles before one of their lot dies by water snakes while crossing the Nueces. The Bundren family, as they attempt to ferry the corpse of Addie across the dry plains, soon lose control as they cross the Yoknapatawpha River. The wagon shatters into pieces, and the coffin is torn away from them. Culla, the protagonist of Cormac McCarthy's Outer Dark, attempts to hire a chain ferry to cross a dark river in the middle of the night, only for disaster to strike. The horse is spooked by a log in the swelling river. The ferryman and other passengers are killed by that log, and the rope securing them to either shore is broken, leaving Culla floating down a raging stream with an uncontrollable slab of wood beneath him. He is helped ashore by the trio, the men who will eventually murder and eat his son. At this point, especially if you recognize the woman in the thumbnail, you might be asking where this is all going. Up to now, we have established a few important themes in American literature. 1. The ingrained pull towards the West, a swarm of individualist exoduses. 2. The Puritan biblical origins of these symbols, and the theme we just established. And 3. The idea that maybe the people driving the wagons might not be leading us in the right direction. After all, what do we do when we have gone as far west as west can go? Does the American spirit within us just stop yearning when it has had its fill, or does it turn into something different? Her name was Connie. She was 15 and she had a quick, nervous giggling habit of craning her neck to glance into mirrors or checking other people's faces to make sure her own was all right. Her mother, who noticed everything and knew everything, and who hadn't much reason any longer to look at her own face, always scolded Connie about it. Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been, by Joyce Carol Oates, is possibly the most well-known American short story in the entire canon. Possible competitors are The Lottery by Shirley Jackson, The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe, or maybe A Good Man Is Hard to Find by O'Connor. But in my opinion, Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been eclipses them all in sheer impact. Oates herself has republished the story in multiple collections, and has even created similar stories like Black Water and Small Avalanches. Like both of these, Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been is based on real events. Oates herself is inextricably linked to the American zeitgeist, where she draws much of her inspiration she chooses to lean into. Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been was initially inspired by two things. First, the actions of the serial killer Charles Schmid, who lured 3 teenage girls into the desert of Arizona, gaining him the terrifying nickname the Pied Piper of Tucson. And 2, the ending lyrics to the Bob Dylan song, It's All Over Now, Baby Blue. So what is it about this story that affects so vividly the people who read it? I have known adults who aren't really readers in the strict sense who nonetheless remember this story from their high school English class. title and all. Well, it's partly because of its numerous awards, which led to its inclusion in many U.S. high school curriculums from the 1990s to the early 2010s, but it also won those awards for a reason, and part of that reason is because it falls perfectly into both of the themes we've just been introduced to. Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been? Follows Connie, a young and beautiful girl living in an unnamed city in the U.S. Before we even finish the first page, Oates thoroughly ingrains within us Connie's self-centered view of herself, common in young adults just beginning to grow into themselves. He sat backwards on his stool, turning himself jerkily around in semicircles, and then stopping and turning back again. And after a while, he asked Connie if she would like something to eat. She said she would, and so she tapped her friend's arm on her way out. Her friend pulled her face up into a brave, drawl look, and Connie said she would meet her at 11 across the way. "I just hate to leave her like that," Connie said earnestly, but the boy said that she wouldn't be alone for long. So they went out to his car, and on the way, Connie couldn't help but let her eyes wander over the windshields and faces all around her. Her face gleaming with a joy had nothing to do with Eddie, or even this place. It might have been the music. She drew her shoulders up and sucked in her breath with the pure pleasure of being alive, and just at that moment she happened to glance at a face just a few feet from hers. It was a boy, with shaggy black hair and a convertible jalopy painted gold. He stared at her, and then his lips widened into a grin. Connie slid her eyes at him and turned away, but she couldn't help glancing back, and there he was, still watching her. He wagged a finger and laughed and said, "Gonna get you, baby," and Connie turned away again without Eddie noticing anything. The story takes its name from the Book of Judges, 1917, which tells the beginning of a Levite and his concubine traveling. They are returning from Bethlehem and enter a town called Gibeah. While passing by, a man approaches them, and before offering them a place to stay for the night, he asks, "Where are you going? Where did you come from?" One Sunday, Connie got up at 11 and washed her hair so that it could dry all day long in the sun. Her parents and sisters were going to their barbecue at an aunt's house, and Connie said no, she wasn't interested, rolling her eyes to let her mother know just what she thought of it. "Stay home alone, then," her mother said, sharply. Connie sat out back in a lawn chair and watched them drive away. Her father, quiet and bald, hunched around so that he could back the car out, her mother with a look that was still angry and not at all softened through the windshield, and in the back seat, poor old June, all dressed up if she didn't know what a barbecue was, with all the running, yelling kids and the flies. But the driveway is not empty for long. Soon Connie is woken up from her sunbathing by the noise of tires on gravel. She looks toward the road and sees the old gold jalopy creep its way next to her house. She runs inside but peeks out eventually. It's him, the strange boy with shaggy black hair. "I'll get you, baby." "I ain't late, am I?" he said. "Who the hell do you think you are?" Connie said. "Told you I'd be out, didn't I? I don't even know who you are. You want to come for a ride?" Connie smirked and let her hair fall loose over one shoulder. "Don't you like my car? New paint job," he said. "Hey." "What?" "You're cute." She pretended to fidget, chasing flies away from the door. But the story in Judges doesn't end on a Sabbath full of fulfillment and ritual. As the man brings back the traveler and his concubine, the night falls, and men of ill nature gather outside the traveler's offered room. While they were enjoying themselves, some of the wicked men of the city surrounded the house. Pounding on the door, they shouted to the old man who owned the house, "Bring out the man who came to your house, so we can have sex with him." The owner of the house went outside and said to them, "No, my friends, don't be so vile. Since this man is my guest, don't do this outrageous thing. Look, here is my virgin daughter and his concubine. I will bring them out to you now, and you can use them and do to them whatever you wish." There is a strange tension throughout the exchanges between Connie and the boy with black hair. Something built not by interjecting beats, but by the raw, understated dialogue. We can follow how improper this is. How did this boy find Connie? Why isn't she closing the door and calling the police? Why are they just talking like that? But there is a naturalism, too. The boy is enticing. The car is enticing. The passenger, the boy who doesn't seem to want to look at Connie but just plays music on his handheld radio, is enticing. It's also strange. Almost scary. Hey, Ellie's got a radio, see? Mine broke down. He lifted his friend's arm and showed her the little transistor radio the boy was holding, and now Connie began to hear the music. It was the same program that was playing inside the house. Bobby King, she said. I listen to him all the time. I think he's great. He's kinda great, Connie said reluctantly. The name of the artist is another reference to Bob Dylan. Some scholars believe the boy to be described similarly to Bob Dylan. A voice on the radio can be enticing, can't it? Singing about love, about freedom, about the American dream. What's all that stuff painted on your car? Can't you read it? He opened the door very carefully, as if he were afraid it might fall off. He slid out just as carefully, planting his feet firmly on the ground, the tiny metallic world in his glasses slowing down like gelatin hardening, and in the midst of it, Connie's bright green blouse. This here's my name to begin with, he said. Arnold Friend was written in tar-like black letters on the side, with a drawing of a round grinning face that reminded Connie of a pumpkin, except it wore sunglasses. I want to introduce myself. I'm Arnold Friend, and that's my real name, and I'm going to be your friend, honey. And inside the car's Ellie Oscar. He's kind of shy. Along with his name, Arnold Friend also has the numbers 33, 19, and 17 printed on his car. Don't you want to go for a ride? I don't know. Why not? I got things to do. Like what? Things. Connie, you ain't telling the truth. This is your day set aside for a ride with me, and you know it, he said, still laughing. The way he straightened and recovered from his fit of laughing showed that it had all been fake. How do you know what my name is? She said, suspiciously. It's Connie. Maybe and maybe not. I know my Connie, he said, wagging his finger. To say that a large amount of ink has been spilled explaining the numbers on Arnold Friend's car would be an understatement. Oates herself has almost sardonically refused to comment on the issue, but there have been a couple notable offerings. Firstly, as proposed by Mark Robson, the numbers simply match the title's allusion to Judges 19:17. Robson argues a little weakly that Judges is the 33rd book before the introduction of the New Testament, counting backwards, though he does wonder about the legitimacy of this assertion, as do multiple other critics. Other answers sweep a wide spectrum. David Piwinski's offering of Genesis 12:1 is a more proper allusion, or Harold Hurley's conclusion that the numbers add up to 69. Piwinski also suggests that perhaps the simplest explanation is that the code contains Friend's real age, the ages of two of his previous victims, and an elliptical number reference to his next victim, Connie, who happens to be 15 years old. That the first number could be Friend's true age is suggested by Connie's unsettling realization that, despite his impersonation of a teenager, he wasn't a kid, he was much older, 30, maybe more. Who knows? In reality, only Oates herself does. You can try and ask her. She is, in fact, still alive, but I think the chances we get a solid answer are pretty low at this point. After all, the greatest short stories never give us all the answers. Where? Where what? Where are we going? He looked at her. He took off the sunglasses, and she saw how pale the skin around his eyes was, like holes that were not in shadow but instead in light. His eyes were like chips of broken glass that catch the light in an amiable way. He smiled. It was as if the idea of going for a ride somewhere, to some place, was a new idea to him. Just for a ride, Connie sweetheart. Connie starts to feel scared. She says that she won't go for a ride with someone she doesn't know, but Arnold Friend says that she does know him. She just doesn't remember. Finally, Connie says he should leave. She has things to do, and besides, she doesn't know them. To this, Arnold says one simple thing. We ain't leaving until you come with us. Connie refuses again and again, but Arnold Friend does not leave, and his words, his voice, get even scarier. Yes, I'm your lover. You don't know what that is, but you will, he said. I know that too. I know all about you. But look, it's real nice, and you couldn't ask for nobody better than me, or more polite. I always keep my word. I'll tell you how it is. I'm always nice at first, the first time. I'll hold you so tight, you won't think you have to try to get away or pretend anything, because you'll know you can't. And I'll come inside you, where it's all secret, and you'll give in to me, and you'll love me. Shut up, you're crazy, Connie said. She backed away from the door. She put her hands up against her ears as if she'd heard something terrible, something not meant for her. People don't talk like that. You're crazy, she muttered. Her heart was almost too big now for her chest, and its pumping made sweat break out all over her. She looked out to see Arnold Friend pause, and then take a step toward the porch, lurching. I'm going to call the police. Honey, listen, here's how it is. I always tell the truth, and I promise you this. I ain't coming in that house after you. You better not. I'm going to call the police if you don't. Honey, he said, talking right through her voice. Honey, I'm not coming in there, but you are coming out here. You know why? Soon as you touch that phone, I don't need to keep my promise and can come inside. You won't want that. You're crazy, she whispered. She backed away from the door, but did not want to go into another part of the house, as if this would give him permission to come through the door. You're crazy, you... Huh? What are you saying, honey? Her eyes darted everywhere in the kitchen. She could not remember what it was, this room. But she does go for the phone. In her crazy state, she lifts it off the receiver, puts it to her ear, only to stop. A roaring sound, the dial tone, comes from the phone, and it stops her. Her hands are too weak to punch in the numbers. She becomes overwhelmed by the roaring noise, by it all, and just screams into the empty receiver. She loses focus until she finds herself on the floor, the phone fallen at her feet. That's a good girl. Put the phone back. She kicked the phone away from her. No, honey, pick it up. Put it back right. She picked it up and put it back. The dial tone stopped. That's a good girl. Now you come outside. The place where you came from ain't there anymore, and where you had in mind to go is canceled out. This place you are now, inside your daddy's house, is nothing but a cardboard box I can knock down any time. You know that, and always did know it. You hear me? She stood. Connie felt the linoleum under her feet. It was cool. She brushed her hair back out of her eyes. She watched herself push the door slowly open, as if she were back safe somewhere in the other doorway, watching this body and this head of long hair moving out into the sunlight, where Arnold Friend waited. My sweet little blue-eyed girl, he said, in a half-sung sigh that had nothing to do with her brown eyes, but was taken up just the same by the vast sunlit reaches of the land behind him and on all sides of him. So much land that Connie had never seen before, and did not recognize, except to know that she was going to it. And that's the end. That's all we get. And in the ending's wake, we are left with a mix of conflicting feelings and questions, the most prominent of which is simple. Why did she get in the car? After all that, after clearly seeing how insane the whole situation was, after even holding the link to safety in her hand? The answer is equally as simple. Of course she got in the car. Because Americans have been getting in the car for hundreds of years, regardless of who's driving. The attribution at the beginning of Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been dedicates the story to Bob Dylan. And just like him, Oates too ends her story with a goodbye.